also in the gallery. On behalf of the National Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to you all. Leader of Government Business.
Acting Speaker, I ask leave of Parliament to move a motion without notice.
Explain your motion.
Acting Speaker, I move that so much of the standing orders be suspended as would prevent the Minister for Bougainville Affairs.
Honorable Leader of Government Business, you seek leave of the seek leave.
Seek leave.
Yeah. You seek leave. Seek, your chair ask. Seeking
I
leave.
seek leave of Acting Speaker.
Leave granted. Make your motion.
Mr. Acting Speaker, I move that so much of our standing orders be suspended as would prevent the Minister for Bougainville Affairs presenting the following documents. A, the return of writs containing the results of the referendum on Bougainville, and B, the joint consultation report in the Melanesian framework.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Minister, Bougainville Affairs.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. Before I make my presentation, I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the presence of the Vice President of the Autonomous Bougainville Government, Honorable Ezekiel Masset, and the members of the ABG who are present up in the gallery to witness this momentous occasion for Bougainville as well as Papua New Guinea as a whole. I'd like to take this opportunity and place on record my big appreciation and recognition to our good Prime Minister, Honorable James Marape, and ABG President, Honorable Ezekiel, Honorable Ismail Torowama, for providing an exceptional and a distinguished joint leadership in successfully completing the Bougainville Referendum process, which is the last process under the Bougainville Peace Agreement and Part 14 of the National Constitution. I now will formally move to tabling of the following three documents. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Section 342, subsection 2 of the National Constitution, I lay on the table the following documents. 1, the return of the writ containing the results of the referendum on Bougainville. And 2, the joint consultation report and the Melanesian framework. Mr. Speaker, I ask leave of Parliament to make a statement.
Is leave granted? Leave granted, Minister.
Mr. Acting Speaker, I stand before the House today mindful of the historic significance of this moment to table the results of the 2019 Bougainville Referendum, together with the joint consultation report which records the consultations undertaken between the national government and the autonomous Bougainville government over the past 6 years pursuant to Section 342 of the National Constitution. Today marks the culmination of a process that was envisaged in the Bougainville Peace Agreement and embedded within our Constitution, requiring both governments to consult on the referendum results before they are brought before this House for its consideration and decision. I do so with humility and with a deep appreciation of the responsibility that has been entrusted in me as the Minister responsible for Bougainville affairs. I am conscious that the matters before this House today are unlike any ordinary matter of public policy. They concern a journey that began with conflict, was transformed through dialogue and reconciliation, and ultimately found expression through a democratic referendum. They concern the aspirations of the people of Bougainville, the constitutional responsibilities of this House, and the enduring commitment of our nation to peace, stability, and the rule of law. Mr. Acting Speaker, today, together with the referendum results, I am also tabling two other documents. Firstly, the joint consultation report that records the consultations undertaken between the two governments following the 2019 referendum. Secondly, I am also tabling the Melanesian framework, which has been jointly developed by the national government and the ABG to provide Parliament with a proposed way forward should this House decide to affirm the referendum results. Before I speak in more details about the joint consultation report, the Melanesian framework, I believe it is important to acknowledge the manner in which these consultations have been conducted. While the national government and the ABG have not always agreed on every issue and indeed have at times held fundamentally different views on certain aspects of the process, discussions have consistently been undertaken in good faith and in the spirit of the Melanesian way. Throughout this process, both governments have been afforded the opportunity to express their views openly, to respectfully disagree where necessary, and to seek common ground through dialogue, consensus, and mutual respect. It is this commitment to consultation and peaceful engagement that has allowed us to reach this point today. Mr. Acting Speaker, as members of this House will recall, on the 9th of June this year, I provided a statement updating Parliament on the status of the post-referendum consultations and the proposed mechanism for bringing the referendum results before the House. On that occasion, I outlined the constitutional pathway established under Section 342 of the Constitution. The outcome of the consultations undertaken to that point and the proposal that Parliament adopt a sessional order to govern Parliament's consideration of the referendum results. Following debate, this House resolved to adopt the sessional order establishing the process through which the referendum results would be brought before the members for consideration. The sessional order further provides for debate on these matters and ultimately for this House to determine whether to accept the Bougainville referendum results through a substantive motion requiring the prescribed parliamentary three-quarters majority. Mr. Acting Speaker, before I formally invoke that process and table the referendum results for consideration by the House, I wish to speak in more detail about the matters that now accompany the results. In particular, I intend to address three issues. First, the consultation process undertaken jointly by the national government and the ABG, pursuant to Section 342 of the Constitution. Second, the Melanesian framework that has emerged from those consultations that outlines a pathway forward that would be followed in the event of a decision to accept the referendum results. And finally, the position of the national government based on our understanding of the constitutional responsibilities of this House and in taking into account the implications of the decisions that members will in due course be called upon to make. Mr. Acting Speaker, members will recall that in my previous statement I outlined the post-referendum consultation process, including the series of consultations between the national government and the autonomous Bougainville government that culminated in Burnham, New Zealand last year. One of the most significant outcomes of those discussions was the signing of the Melanesian Agreement, through which both governments committed to the joint development of a Melanesian framework to guide the next phase of the process to achieve a mutually acceptable political settlement option for Bougainville. The record of these consultations is contained in the joint consultation report that I am tabling today. The report serves as the formal record of the consultations undertaken pursuant to Section 342, subsection 1 of the Constitution and represents the fulfillment of those consultation obligations. It provides members with the historical context of the Bougainville crisis, the peace process, the 2019 referendum, and the consultations that have followed. It is an important reference document, and I strongly encourage all members to review it carefully. Regardless of the position members may ultimately take, our deliberations should be informed by a full appreciation of the history, agreements, and sacrifices that have brought us to this moment. Mr. Acting Speaker, let me now talk more about the Melanesian framework. Should the National Parliament decide to accept the referendum results, the Melanesian framework provides a structured pathway for implementing the outcome of the Bougainville referendum in a manner that is consistent with constitutional process and Melanesian values of dialogue, consensus, and stability. It is designed to support an orderly transition by establishing agreed arrangements through which Bougainville can progressively assume greater powers and responsibilities. At the heart of the framework is the concept of a transitional phase that is being termed as self-government. Under the Melanesian framework, an affirmative decision by the National Parliament would not result in the immediate independence of Bougainville. Rather, it would initiate a transitional period during which additional powers and responsibilities would progressively be exercised by Bougainville through agreed arrangements between the two governments. The Melanesian framework envisaged the accelerated assumption of outstanding Section 290 powers, together with the progressive delegation or sharing of agreed sovereign powers under Section 289 of the Constitution. The objective is to ensure that any transition occurs in a measured and responsible manner that maintains stability, protects services and preserves confidence in the process. It is important to note that the elements of the framework regarding sovereign Section 289 powers are discussed on the premise that powers may be shared or delegated within the limits of the national constitution, and that it is for Parliament alone to decide to make changes to law to make additional provisions to implement this specific aspect of the Melanesian framework. Section 289 powers. A full transfer of these powers can only take place once full independence is realized, and the necessary changes to the Constitution are made to give full effect to independence. Mr. Acting Speaker, the framework further proposes detailed arrangements for assessing readiness, monitoring, implementation, and guiding cooperation between the two governments throughout the transition. It establishes a range of mechanisms, including oversight, review, and implementation bodies, to ensure that progress is guided by agreed benchmarks relating to institutional capability, legal preparedness, governance, and financial sustainability. Ultimately, the Melanesian framework proposes a pathway that would see Bougainville move from its current autonomous status through a period of self-government and eventually towards independence, while at the same time maintaining a close, peaceful, and enduring relationship with Papua New Guinea. Mr. Acting Speaker, on this point I need to be clear. In the event that members of this House decide to accept the referendum results, the Melanesian framework is the proposed pathway to implement that decision, subject, of course, to the constitutional, legislative, and administrative measures that would be required to give effect to the various stages of implementation. Whilst the framework caters for an affirmative decision by the National Parliament, it is not intended to usurp the unfettered decision-making authority of this Honourable House, consistent with Section 342, subsection 2 of the National Constitution. Parliament retains the discretion to make any decision on the referendum results as it considers appropriate. Mr. Acting Speaker, as part of the consultation process, there was an attempt to provide some clarity on a possible pathway that would follow a negative vote. However, as you will note in the joint consultation report, the national government and the autonomous Bougainville government were unable to reach consensus on a possible pathway in the event that the National Parliament does not accept the referendum results. As Parliament may make any decision on the referendum results, as Minister, I have an obligation to provide members of this House with a full account of the discussions that transpired between the national government and the autonomous Bougainville government on the implications of and potential pathway following a decision not to accept the referendum results. This is set out in Part 5 of the joint consultation report. Should the National Parliament ultimately determine not to accept the referendum results, the national government believes that a constructive pathway forward consistent with the objectives and principles of the Bougainville Peace Agreement remains feasible. The first element of the pathway would be the completion of the drawdown and effective exercise of all remaining autonomous powers available to Bougainville under Part 14 of the National Constitution, recognizing that the full implementation of autonomy remains a central pillar of the Bougainville Peace Agreement. The second element would be continued support for strengthening Bougainville's institutions, governance systems, and administrative capacity, recognizing that strong institutions, accountable government, and effective public administration are essential both to autonomy and to any future political arrangements that may emerge. Mr. Acting Speaker, the third element would be a sustained focus on economic growth, fiscal sustainability, and the progressive development of Bougainville's capacity for financial self-reliance, ensuring that future political aspirations are supported by strong economic foundations and improved well-being for the people of Bougainville. And the fourth element would be the continuation of consultations in good faith through the existing constitutional mechanisms, including the Joint Supervisory Body and other agreed forums, accompanied by periodic reviews of progress against mutually agreed objectives. When sufficient progress is achieved, a future national parliament may then be invited to reconsider its decision regarding the referendum results. In this way, the aspirations of the people of Bougainville remains alive. The door to future consideration of Bougainville's political status remains open, and both governments remain committed to a pathway grounded in dialogue, consultation, peace, and mutual respect. National Parliament in that instance would need to consider a constitutional basis to revisit a decision that is not in support of the referendum results, including through amendments to Part 14 of the National Constitution. Mr. Acting Speaker, given that Parliament will have fulfilled the requirements of Division 7 of Part 14 of the National Constitution, any consideration of Bougainville's future political status would likely require the development of a new legal or constitutional processes to provide a lawful basis for such action. This could include, through the appropriate means, seeking a definitive interpretation from the Supreme Court on the constitutional process by which a future national parliament may revisit the decision of the 11th National Parliament on the referendum results. As Minister, I believe this would represent a responsible, balanced, and practical course should the National Parliament ultimately determine not to accept the referendum results. The simple fact is that regardless of how this House votes, we have a collective obligation to consider a responsible way forward. It is in the national interest that we pursue measures that preserve and advance Bougainville's long-held aspirations for self-determination while providing a constitutional basis for continued cooperation, dialogue, and peaceful engagement between the two governments without foreclosing the possibility for an independent Bougainville in the future. Mr. Acting Speaker, this House carries a significant mandate on Bougainville of all our people, on behalf of all our people, including the people of Bougainville, and that mandate must be exercised in their best interest. The deliberations that follow should therefore be fully informed and conducted with a clear understanding of the matters explored and debated throughout the consultation process. Anything not addressed in the documents that I presented before the House will ultimately be left to the wisdom and judgment of the members of this House to consider. The decision that will eventually be made by this House and the manner in which we conduct ourselves in the weeks ahead will be recorded as part of our nation's history. Future generations will look back on this period and consider whether we approach this question with wisdom, patience, respect, and a genuine commitment to the principles that have guided the peace process for more than 2 decades. It is for that reason that every member of this House carries a profound responsibility to give this matter the attention, consideration, and reflection that it deserves. The decision before us is not an ordinary political question. Mr. Speaker, it is one that touches upon our Constitution, our national unity, the express will of the people of Bougainville, and the legacy we leave for future generations. Mr. Acting Speaker, we must equally recognize the aspirations of the people of Bougainville. Those aspirations have been expressed consistently over many years and decades and were most clearly demonstrated through the referendum conducted in 2019. Regardless of the views that members of this House may hold at this point of time, there can be no doubt that those aspirations are genuine, deeply held, and deserving of our respect. And we should not lose sight of the shared history that binds the people of Bougainville and the people of Papua New Guinea. Our histories have been intertwined through struggle, nation-building, cooperation, and reconciliation. It is our collective responsibility to ensure that whatever path is chosen preserves the peace and goodwill that have been so carefully built. Mr. Speaker, today Parliament is called upon to fulfill the responsibility entrusted to it by the Bougainville Peace Agreement and our national constitution. We do so not as representatives of one region or one constituency alone, but as custodians of the national interest and guardians of a peace that has been more than 2 decades in the making. The decision that will ultimately be taken by this House must therefore be guided by wisdom, informed by history, grounded in law, and reflective of our shared desire to secure a peaceful and prosperous future for all our people. Mr. Speaker, this singular decision of the 11th National Parliament will be the true test of the strength and endurance of our democracy, national constitution, and a united nation state of Papua New Guinea. Mr. Acting Speaker, it is in that spirit, Mr. Speaker, that I now table the return of the writ confirming the referendum results in accordance with the sessional order approved by the Parliament on 9 June 2026. I also tabled the joint consultation report and the Melanesian framework to inform and assist the members in their deliberation. Mr. Speaker, I now commend this statement to the House. Thank you.